Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into this episode of the Through the Storm podcast. But before we jump into this, I want to tell you about my new book that's coming out in November of this year. It's called Through the Storm, The Path to Becoming a Resilient Leader. Now, what this book is way more than just a leadership book. This book is going to walk you through some of the storms that some of the toughest leaders on the planet have walked through. Not only is it going to tell you about their story, but it's going to tell you about how they've gotten through these storms. And it's broken into two sections. The first is military storms and combat storms, and the second is business storms, where we'll talk about the crash of 2008. We'll talk about what happened during COVID for businesses. So a lot of these stories are real life examples of how some top level and high performing leaders have gotten through these storms. And what it's going to bring to you is action steps and tools on how you can get through your storms. So sign up at www.throughthestorm.pro, and what you're going to get there is you're going to get some inside information about launch dates, inside information about Zoom calls that are going to be pre-launch, some really cool stuff that I've collected along the way. So sign up and enjoy this episode of Through the Storm.
Leading people well is tough, even in the best of times. But what do we do when it gets really, really tough? How do we as leaders respond to adversity in a healthy and productive way? How can we continue to succeed in business and in life through the storms of leading well? You know, when dangerous storms begin to brew over the horizon, most herd animals and even humans have a tendency to take cover or move away from the storm, but not the buffalo. The buffalo, instead of running for cover, will gather its herd, take a few last bites of whatever food is out there, and head directly through the storm. As leaders, we have to do the same thing. We're all faced with different storms that come with leading well. Modern day leaders face leadership storms that can cripple an individual, a team, or an entire organization. Our guests are resilient leaders, some of the best resilient leaders our country has to offer. They'll walk us through how they actually got through these storms and how they became better on the other side. So join us on the Through the Storm podcast.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. Thank you for tuning in to the Through the Storm podcast. Today is a special day. We have an awesome guest, another Marine. I know, like, I bring you like some awesome guests, but a lot of them are Army. And this time I get to bring a fellow devil dog into the picture, and not only one a devil dog, but one that's served 31 years. So Scott Stalker, Master Gun Scott Stalker, served on active duty in the United States Marine Corps for 31 years, retiring in August of 2023. And while on active duty, Stalker served as a Command Senior Enlisted Leader for the Defense Intelligence Agency, United States Cyber Command, National Security Agency, and in his final assignment with the United States Space Command. He served in a multitude of locations, including distinguished military career to include combat operations in Somalia, Bosnia, Iraq, and a non-combatant evacuation operation in Tirana, Albania. This guy's done it. He's been through it all. Currently, Scott serves as a senior consultant and executive advisor for several different corporations and as a founder and CEO of S2 Stalker Solutions, LLC. He's a highly, highly, highly regarded keynote speaker for high-profile events within the federal government, the intelligence community, and the national security sector, and serves on the board of several businesses and nonprofits. Scott, I could go on and on about what you've done, your career. Sir, you and I have crossed paths several times inadvertently at DIA and at MARSOC and other play here in Colorado Springs. So welcome to the show, Scott. Thank you for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really love the name of this podcast. I love what it symbolizes, and I love the fact that we're going to go through this storm together, talk about it so that others can learn through my scenarios, and everyone has their own storms they go through, especially if you do this long enough. So thanks for having me, Travis.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you hit it on the head, man. Like no matter what, we're in three phases of life, in my opinion. We're either going into a storm, we are in a storm, or we're coming out of a storm and preparing for the next. So when we talk about life in general, we have to be able to go through storms in a way that is honorable and that we learn and that we grow from. And in your career, you have been through many different storms, so many different storms, lots of different countries you've served in, different people that you've served with. So I just want to dive right into it. I want to head directly into the storm with you, Scott. Tell me and tell our listeners about one of the most significant storms that you have personally been through as a leader.
Yeah, I've been through several, like many, whether it was combat operations. I remember being at the Defense Intelligence Agency in a Eastern European nation, and the director of DIA texted me in the morning and said, "Hey, I can't do the presentation to the ambassador. You do it." I had little or no prep, and I did it. That showed me what trust and empowerment is. There's a lot of things, but I thought a lot about this, and I want to focus on the one because I haven't been able to find a solution to this yet. And many others are dealing with that. And that is this one of suicide. And the earliest I can remember this impacting me in a leadership position, because I've dealt with this, quite frankly. I actually witnessed a suicide at the age of 5. But I remember one day in a senior leadership position that an individual came into my office, and they were doing a health and welfare inspection because someone didn't show up for work. Okay, let's see what's going on. Are they okay? Did they slip and fall? Are they sick? Whatever. And it was a mess, right? This individual used a firearm, and it was a mess. And so this issue of suicide and getting multiple layers through this. Yourself, I think you got to deal with it yourself first, that idea of putting your mask on. Your organization, you got to help them through this, especially those that are closest to the individual. The family, and bringing assistance to them, and not forgetting them the moment that family member is no longer in the military, which it happens occasionally. And so getting through that. I bring this issue up because I have been retired not even a full year yet. And I have dealt with 9 suicides in less than a year of my terminal leave, 3 in the last 4 months, 3 in the last month. And it's heartbreaking. And so we'll dive into some things I think we can do. And I think many people are trying their best. The only thing I can think of is this is an irrational act. It's irrational, right? I think everyone can agree that that's not a rational solution to any problem. And there are a lot of bad problems out there, and big problems. And so we often try to find a solution with a rational mind, and that doesn't compute in many ways. And so we have to think of it in many ways from the individual who's going through whatever those stressors are. And I have some things here that I think have helped me think through this and identify areas that we probably need to focus more on, and some may be a little less.
No, Scott, I'm really glad you brought in you brought this up, because it's impacted me as well. I think you and I had a conversation a while back about, like, it was coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan. That was 10 years ago. I got home from Afghanistan, and in the last year, I've had 4 of the Marines that I served with commit suicide. And it's not something that is immediate. It's something that brews over time. And you're like, it's that irrational. It's irrational, and it's something that you can't take back. And it devastates everybody that it comes into contact with. Suicide does. Yeah. And having dealt with that in such a broad and huge level over the past year, Scott, like, tell me how, just tell us how you got through that. Tell us how you are getting through that, because that's not something you just get through and you're over with. So tell us how you're getting through that.
You will likely, depending on your relation to the individual, go through a mixture of emotions. Mm-hmm. You will go through anger. You will be upset at the person. Again, thinking rationally about an irrational act. You're mad at them. You are sad, you're depressed, you are, as a leader, thinking of other things too, life insurance, how are we going to take care of the family? Like, you're thinking of all of these things, which you don't want to be thinking of money and business in the middle of all of that. But as a leader, I'm looking for paperwork, I'm looking for medical reports, the things that can help, while everyone else is trying to grieve and respond. You have to deal with service culture and unit culture as it relates to memorial services. Do you throw a big memorial service? Some would say you don't, because does that honor suicide? That's for leaders and individuals to decide. It's not for me to tell everyone a one-size-fits-all process. I do think you have to grieve. But areas that we need to focus on a little bit more, and areas I think we need to focus on a little bit less. So while the hotline is important because there has to be something like that, while giving speeches and attending the 1 hour brief about suicide awareness, all of those things are important. I don't know that they're as relevant. And I'm not shaming anyone who is in charge of that, those services or whatever. But I've never heard of anyone that has gone through this, call the hotline, and they were talked out of it. And the reason why is normally you're going to talk to someone you trust and you believe loves you and cares enough about you to come and pick you up, or to talk to you until 5 a.m, whatever, or to bring you to the hospital. Again, have to have those services, but I don't know that they add as much value. I'd love to be proven wrong. I look at a couple areas: excess of alcohol and relationships. And when individuals have poor relationships, I'm not going to say this person's name, but I think you served with him in MARSOC. He recently died by suicide. This was an individual who was technically one of the best there is in the business and was going through a marital issue and a few other things. I was informed that there was probably an awful lot of alcohol. You put those two together, it doesn't equal suicide, but it's something that as leaders, we now need to look at a little bit more. In many ways, it's why I decided to stop drinking alcohol, not because I was suicidal, but I didn't need an extra factor and a numbing agent. So I look at relationship issues, certainly drugs and alcohol. And if I see that, you need to get left of leadership. You need to get left of the act and be proactive and have the moral courage to say, hey, are you okay? Let's get some help. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to assign someone to be there for you. And I'm actually okay if you're mad at me for doing this because I love you enough to get this taken care of. And sometimes that may not come across and be well received by the individual. But leadership isn't likership. You have to do what's in the best interest of the person, the family, the unit, the organization, and yourself, and do what's right. So those are the things that I look for always. I don't know. Again, I could be wrong on this, but I don't know of many people who have everything going for them. Everything's great in life, who just decide that now's the time to die by suicide. I imagine there's usually financial issues, relationship issues, drugs and alcohol, a mixture, or one or more of those. So those are the things I think leaders need to look for. And if you have leader in your name anywhere, you got to act. You have to do something, not observe. Yeah. Because here's another unnamed story. An individual, this guy was in the Space Force, senior E9, very senior E9, someone I loved and adored, who I would have private. If he was in the building and traveled on base, I wanted to have a private conversation with him in my office and just catch up. And oftentimes he would advise and mentor me. I would always reach out to him and see how his family was doing. And I just assumed that he was a big, strong man and he was okay. And so I didn't ask him how he was doing enough. And a couple months ago, he took his life. And so again, looking out for the individual, asking how they're doing, genuinely caring, genuinely concerned with them, showing that you love them, living the example, those types of things, but looking for those triggers and acting when you need to.
My goodness, Scott. Yeah. I mean, it's almost as if there's the storm of suicide is the big storm. That's the storm in and of itself. But then when you get into that storm as leaders, you face several different micro storms. And that's logistics. That's things that you have to take care of. That's worrying about the feelings of others and all the different things that come with being a good leader when you're leading through that kind of a storm. And it is just like, and when, I feel the same way about the drugs and alcohol. I gave up drinking 2 years ago, and it was because of, and to be honest, it was because there were those kind of thoughts. It was to be vulnerable and transparent. It was because they're like that. It was creeping up, and then we had a ring of a run of suicide go on in some of the Marines that I knew, and it was just this storm that was just like, man, what can I change in this storm? And I think when we're in those things, when we're in it, when we're deep in it, and we can figure out small things to change and just grasp a hold of, okay, I need to stop drinking. I need to change something. That's where where those signs are shown, that as leaders, if we can hear those and we can latch on to like, okay, I heard you say you have a problem. You don't want to drink anymore. There's a much deeper issue there that could be way under the surface, that, hey, there's suicidal ideology. There's something there. So how do you encourage leaders to dig deeper into their people? Sometimes getting past that surface level conversation of like, hey, how you doing? Oh, it's a crappy day. Like, okay, well, it'll get better. See you later. How would you encourage leaders to be able to dig deeper and be like, hey, well, tell me about what that looks like?
Yeah. And, to that point you made, there is a necessity of grit in the armed forces, and we are going to have crappy days and it will get better. But you don't stop right there. And I think we all have things going on. It's not like the command sergeant major or the squadron chief or whatever your position is, regimental commander, whatever. We all have 1,000 things going on at once. And so we're not solely there to talk to every single person to make sure everyone's having a jolly day. Yeah. But when you are asking someone how they're doing, be authentic with it, actually care. And if you're going to ask that question, be prepared to receive, it's crappy day. Now it's your obligation to dive into that. It might just be a crappy day because the dog pooped on the carpet. Okay, it happens. Get a new carpet, clean the carpet, give the dog a spank, whatever. But it also might be he's now $50,000 in debt. His wife is leaving him. Her husband is leaving him, like whatever. It could be a variety of things. And this is the time for leadership to get involved, to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to miss that meeting and the rest of the day's meetings. I'll send a rep. I'll capture the footnotes, let the commander know, whatever. He or she will understand. And you got to handle this. Yeah. You have to handle this, not so that you solve the problem, but that you get them to the experts that have the expertise, the training to solve the problem. I have the basics of suicide awareness, but I am not a therapist. I am not a certified counselor. I'm not a marriage counselor. I'm not a financial counselor. Yes, I am married. I understand the challenges and the joy of marriage. And I have money, of course, but I'm not either of those in terms of expert. So getting them to the expert is incredibly important. There's kind of three things in terms of a leadership philosophy that I follow as it relates to this. And the Marine Corps has JJ did tie buckle. We know what every letter stands for, and it's ingrained in our heart. But there's a letter missing, in my opinion, and it summarizes all of them, and that's L, that's love. Because when you love your people, I'm so excited, Travis, when you grow your podcast, when you get promoted. I'm so excited when individuals I work for find a new job or get married or have children. Like, I love them. I want to see them succeed. And I love them so much that when they slip up, I hold them accountable. Yeah. Hey, Travis, I saw your report you sent in here. It was pretty good. Here's a couple things you can do better. I care about you enough to tell you how you can improve, just as I expect others to do for me as well. So love and accountability is huge there. And I think it's one that, in terms of a leadership trait, I try to lead with. I want others to know, and number two, to expect what you inspect. You may have heard this before. Yep. But if you're never looking over here and you're never looking behind the stairwell in the building, that's why there's cobwebs and rust. Because you don't inspect it. And so no one goes there to service it. You have to expect what you inspect, which means you've got to continue to open doors and talk to people and inspect, so to speak, other things. And then lastly, on this, in terms of leadership, living the example. It's not enough to set the example. You got to live it, because people will listen to what you say, but they'll watch what you do and follow that example. Live that example. Travis, don't walk on the grass. And then I walk on the grass, right? That's a simple one.
Yeah.
But we've all seen that before.
Yeah.
We've seen the dietitian yelling and screaming at us to eat the salad, and then they're 250, right? We've seen individuals tell us alcohol and drugs are bad as we're having that meeting and social at the bar. Yeah. We gotta live the example and be true and honest with it. And listen, I'm not someone to come on here and say you got to stop drinking. That's not for me to say. I made the decision, and I loved a good cocktail when I had a drink. Right. I remember right down the road here at Marine Corps Air Station New River in 1993, running a PFT and having a keg ready for us. That was the culture. That's the way it is. And I love our Marine Corps culture. I love the joint culture and the DoD culture. And so having a cocktail or two, nothing wrong with that. But being aware of it and living the example and not speaking out both sides of your mouth. I think those things are critical. And when you incorporate those into your lifestyle, people are vulnerable. They see you for who you are, and they will approach you with their issues and challenges.
Absolutely. And transformational leadership there, I'm going to nerd out for just 2 seconds. Transformational leadership there, there's a thing called idealized influence. And it's about how, as leaders, we have people that follow us, and we have people that want to lead like us. And if we are leading in a way that is talking out both sides of our mouths, or if it's doing as I say, not as I do, or doing as it's just not going to work. And you're going to create, instead of creating more leaders that are loving and kind and caring and powerful, you're creating leaders that are doing the same thing that you're doing. If you're leading in a way that's talking both ways, or if you're not doing what you're leading, how you say, or you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So it's the ripple effect. You talked about ripple effects earlier. The ripple effect of that is huge as well. Yes. And it's not just in the Marine Corps culture. Like for the listeners out there, that this is industry agnostic. Leaders in general, when you are leading your people, statistics say that you, as a direct manager or leader, have more impact on someone's mental health than their therapist or their counselor does. So there's so much power and influence that comes with leadership, and balancing that out and figuring out how to do that well. Truly, I say this all the time, like leadership truly can save lives, whether you're on the battlefield or you're in the boardroom. Either like it does not matter. Leadership can save lives in both of those arenas. And and Scott, and you've been through this. I mean, hardcore in the past year, but over your career, you've seen all of these. You've seen some of the worst of the worst. And like for the suicide storm specifically, people that are either walking through, leading into that, or out of that, or in that. And what would you say that some of the lessons that you've learned on how to get through that storm?
I think everyone deals with it differently, but humans are tribal by nature, which is important to know and understand, especially in this digital age, right? You and I are talking from miles away, and we bring this show to people who will watch it virtually all over the globe. And so we're not evolving so much, but we're adapting to that changed environment. But people need human contact, human conversation, face-to-face, kneecap-to-kneecap leadership. And so I deal with it that way, where I have that kneecap-to-kneecap leadership, where I'm able to engage people directly. I need that. I love that. I do an awful lot of events now, so there's a ton of people. You know, I spent the weekend in Houston talking to a variety of different people, and many coming up to me. That charges my battery. It also drains the battery. And so it's a balance here. And so on the other side of that, I love isolation too. I love to go on a morning walk when it's quiet out, no one's around, to collect my thoughts, oftentimes without the headphones, without anything. I listen to an individual called MGySgt, who I was introduced to via the Calm app. And now I listen to him on YouTube and others. 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, he kind of sets my mind for positive affirmations and gets me going forward. And so I love that. And then I love to escape with books and movies and podcasts. I love to escape to hear lessons of history. And I know who I am. Like, I genuinely want to live 50,000 more years. I am so fascinated by where we're going as a world, technology, society. I want to see my daughters grow up and get married and have families and everything, or pursue their dreams. Like, all of that is fascinating to me. And so I try as best I can to really live this idea of putting on my mask first, taking care of my own health and wellness so that I can do those things. But knowing, again, we're tribal and we got to be around our tribe. I got a great tribe out here with the Marines, many of folks that you know in the SOF community. And then also, you need alone time. My wife and I talk about this all the time. You know, she needs to go, not only does she need alone time occasionally, she needs to be with her girlfriends, right? Because I don't have that thing that her girlfriends bring her. So all of that is important. And we have those times when we schedule those. But know that you're not a robot, and mistakes happen, imperfections happen. I get it wrong all the time. I tell people all the time, get your rest. I slept about 2 hours last night. I had some insanity going on here at the family. I didn't get a lot of sleep. I'll be fine. We can suck it up for a day or two. But it's not that I'm being a hypocrite, but things happen in life. Yeah. Things happen, and we have to adjust after travel and that sort of thing. Tonight, maybe I get 9 hours and you figure it out. But nobody has this all figured out perfectly. This idea of balance and all these other things. Give it your best. Don't be so hard on yourself. And then try to improve every single day. So that's an awful lot there, Travis, but hopefully I answered your question.
No, that was perfect, Scott. No, thank you. And I want to just say for the listeners out there, what Scott said is very, very, very important, especially when we talk about suicide prevention. You have to be able to get with your people. Again, the hotlines and the courses that you can take and the online modules and things that we go through it professionally, those are helpful. They are helpful, but there's no substitute for calling up a friend, telling your spouse, hey, I'm not doing okay. There's nothing that is the best way to overcome and get out on the other side of this storm, to be able to prepare best for in the best way you can for the next one to come. So if you are listening out there, step one, man, just let somebody know exactly what's going on. And if you are that person that's being let know about what's going on, don't overlook it. Make sure that you're digging in, make sure you're asking hard questions, and that you are like Scott, like you said earlier, make sure you're ready for the follow through. Make sure you're ready to take those answers and follow through and be someone that can be a trusted advisor in this space, because it's important. And it's that first point of contact is what saves lives. I've seen it happen. Scott, I know you've seen it happen. So that's, absolutely. I mean, please, if you take something away from that, just listen to what Scott says about human community and interaction in your tribe. So Scott, we talked for a while about this. I want people to find you. I want people to know where they can look you up. Tell the listeners where's the best place to find you and best place to interact with you.
Yeah, really one of the easier stalkers to find, quite frankly. So my social medias are all certified. So whether it's a blue check or something like that, please make sure, if you're looking for me on social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, X, you find the one of me being certified. The easiest way to do that is to go to my website, stalkersolutions.com, and it has all of my social media hyperlinked. And you can also contact me there, and we can talk business or whatever, a variety of things, veterans issues, you name it. I have a fairly decent following on LinkedIn. I love to engage there passionately. And then I reestablished some of my old accounts now that I'm out of the military, because quite frankly, I didn't have time for Facebook and these other things then, like I do now. So that's how you can find me. Not too hard to find. If you do find some other things on social media, there's a fair amount of fakes out there of me and others, unfortunately. And that's a whole nother conversation for another time, but just go to my website, stalkersolutions.com.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, Scott, man, I can't thank you enough for bringing this just incredibly important topic to the podcast. And your leadership has been just, like I said, I've watched it from kind of the side for a long time. We've inadvertently crossed paths, and leaders like you are what save lives. what you say, what the way that you lead, the way that you do what you say you're going to do, and the way you lead by example is phenomenal. I am grateful for you. Thank you for your service to our country. If you are listening out here, reach out to Scott, book him. He's got great things to say. So Scott, thank you so much for being here, man.
Thanks, Travis. Appreciate it. And then appreciate the audience.
Yeah. All right, y'all. So thank you for tuning in. Tune in next time. Subscribe to the Through the Storm podcast, where we have conversations like this, and they are important and they're life-changing. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.